This episode is brought to you by Bureau, our title sponsor. With 8 vibrant locations in Miami's best neighborhoods, Bureau is the perfect co-working place to work, network, and thrive alongside other entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, and local businesses. Find your space at bureaumiami.com.
We're here with Irwin Raij, a partner at Sidley Austin LLP. He's a entertainment, sports, and media, M&A, and private equity guy. You're the first of this type on the podcast.
Yeah.
Listen,
So
appreciate you guys breaking out to chat with a little old me. You know,
Yeah.
this is exciting.
cool.
And he wisely chose the 1942.
I know he comes in like checking all the boxes already.
That's
right?
right.
Like sports, entertainment, drinking tequila with us. So well, welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
excited to have you, Irwin. Cheers.
No.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And no hesitation when we told him he had to have a cocktail with us. He was like, all I got to do is be at a Little League baseball game today.
I just have to make it to my 7-year-old's baseball game. One is more than enough for me, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. As my associates say, I'm a lightweight, but I'm game.
You're going to be one of those parents that are heckling the referees after a tequila?
We've definitely seen our fair share. There's always that one guy with the flask. I'm not that
Yeah.
guy, but I'll be happy. I'll be sitting there with a smile.
Well, cool. We're excited to have you on the podcast, Irwin. We haven't really spoken to anyone in the sports and entertainment world, so we hope to learn a thing or two here today, and hopefully share some of your wisdom upon our listeners. So let's get into it. You said you're a Juban.
I am a Juban.
From Miami Beach.
That is true.
Born and raised on Miami Beach.
I was actually born in West Palm.
Okay.
My dad, I'm the classic, American, first generation American story, especially from down here. I'm luckiest person in the world. My grandparents escaped from Ukraine and Poland pre-World War II. Some bad stuff, anti-Semitism, and made it to Cuba, which was very welcoming to the community. And they built a life there. My grandparents met in Cuba. My parents were all born in Cuba. And Castro came to power. My dad was 14. He moved to Miami.
Okay. Well, he got out. So when did he move to Miami?
59.
59.
And when he moved, it was one of those crazy stories. My grandfather took him to Miami saying, "You're going on vacation.
Oh, wow.
You're going on vacation." And my dad...
Permanent vacation.
He didn't know he was never going back. My grandfather went back
Oh, really?
Wow.
and left my father in Miami. And look, the community, he wasn't the only family member. In the Jewish Cuban community, it was very much protect your children, especially the young ones, and trying to find the best future possible. And so as a precaution, and my father told the story, look, I hear these stories in bits and pieces, right? Like sadly at a Shiva or some crazy family event where the story goes something like, Castro, the United States will never let this guy stay in power. He's crazy. Well, I'll be back soon. We'll bring you back to... My father never went back.
Yeah.
And my grandfather came out a couple years later, and basically brought everyone in the family, cousins, etc., to the United States.
But your grandfather seems like he knew shit was going on pretty early on. Was like, we got to get out of Dodge City here.
Yeah, I've heard some crazy stories. He had a retail business. He got to Cuba with nothing, built a business, and it was pretty much the street captains taking over kind of stories.
Gotcha.
And I don't know all the details.
Little shakedown action.
Stuff,
Yeah.
Whatever it was, scary stuff. And my father was the youngest, and he's like, I'm not taking chances. Because, in the Ukraine, you could be taken to the mountains, apparently, like kids were taken away from families to be programmed. And the concern, like to be part of the, the communist, social, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so as I understand the story, and of course, I'm sure I have it partially wrong, but as I understand the story, my grandfather was like, we're not taking that chance.
Yeah.
And we're going to take him to
We've
Miami,
seen this
enslaved.
playbook already. We're not going to fall out for the second time here.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was a crazy story.
Yeah.
And so my father was here. He actually met my mom. He met my mom in Cuba, but they started dating in Miami
Gotcha.
because she was too young. And then
So your dad was raised in Palm Beach?
no, my dad grew up in Miami.
Okay.
He lived, not too far from here, in renting apartments and living in living rooms and stuff, like renting living rooms. And all the stories are a little bit. I'd be lying if I said I knew the stories perfectly.
Yeah.
I know them enough to be dangerous to know that he was on his own, he was a judo champion. He had to clean at a studio because he couldn't afford lessons, and that was, but like, so again, classic immigrant story. He was here in Miami, and my grandfather basically said to him, like, you need to get a graduate degree, right? Before you get married, you need a graduate degree. And so my father became an electrical engineer. He went to University of Miami, and he was recruited to work for IBM on the Saturn V mission, ultimately, which is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. So my sister was born. My dad was working at NASA. My family were working at NASA Cape Canaveral. He moved to West Palm to work for RCA. And that's when I was born. And they wanted to move everyone in the factory to Boston. And my dad's like, I'm Cuban. I'm not sure that snow thing works for me.
Yeah.
And my grandparents were in Miami at that point.
Yeah.
And so he decided to move to Miami. He left eventually engineering and ended up owning retail stores in Miami Beach.
What kind of retail stores?
He was a sneakerhead. We had sneaker shops.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't always only sneakers. Like, he's one of the OGs when it comes to being sneaker guy in Miami.
Oh, wow.
We had multiple stores on Lincoln Road. I mean, we had like electronics and toys and all that. If you knew Miami Beach, Lincoln Road, the 400 block in Lincoln Road, there used to be a store with an elevator. And the second floor was a toy store. It was a department store. That was my family, my father's business.
Did they own the real estate too, or they just operated?
Oh man, if we owned that real estate,
Yeah.
our lives would be different. So
your dad was a retail guy.
he ended up in retail, and he was in retail for 50 years.
Wow.
And he closed the business. And literally, like, people used to sleep. I could show you pictures of people like sleeping in front of the store trying to get sneaker releases. It was the coolest thing. Wasn't always that way, because when I was a kid, they were tougher times. At retail is a very ebb and flow business, but especially in the mama papa world. But yeah, I mean, people used to sleep outside the store, and they closed it in Halloween. It'll be 3 years in Halloween was when my father closed the business after 50 years. It happened to be the same day that they were married. That's their anniversary. Happens to be the same day as my youngest son's birthday.
Oh, wow.
He was born on Halloween. So on one day, Halloween's forget the candy and everything else. For us, it's a special day because it's my parents' anniversary, the day it closed store. And I have a soon-to-be 3-year-old, Levy Simcha, the cutest little guy in the world.
That's amazing.
What
What was the store called?
Mr. R Sports.
Mr. R Sports.
Yeah, real creative. We had one store called Mark 400. I don't know where Mark came from, because no one in the family that I know of was Mark, but it was 400 Lincoln Road. So it was Mark 400, Mr. R Sports, and then at one point it was Mr. R Sports 1973 by Mr. R, because that was that store.
So you were born in West Palm, moved here. So you effectively grew up though on the beach?
I grew up on the beach, yeah.
Interesting. Where on the beach? Where did you live?
Couple places, near Fisher Park on like 51st Street, 51st and Alton.
Yep.
Went to North Beach Elementary, went to Beach High.
Wow.
So eventually we moved around. We lived in Champlain Towers, the one that came down.
Yeah.
I lived in that during high school.
Wow.
And that's a crazy story. So many crazy stories, because the weekend of the building collapsed, the building collapsed, my best friend from high school passed away of COVID. Sad. It was very sad. And several people, the Latin Jewish community, there were a lot of people lived in that building. They came into town, and they're staying in their apartments in Champlain Towers, and then the tragedy hit. So talk about a tragic time. Like, Champlain lived in that building for a couple years in high school. It turned into be a very tragic, sad story for us. But anyway, I lived there. Sunset Island for a little bit later in life. I live on the beach now.
Okay.
I left here thinking I'd be, the classic first kid to leave the house in the Cuban small family universe, and thought I'd be away for 3 to 5 years, and I was gone for 29. Came back 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. So you just came back to the 305.
Just came back. I always would come every year, multiple times a year. Like, I had a client, I represented Guggenheim when they bought the Dodgers. At the time, the largest transaction in the history of sports. A month later, as my father was closing one of his stores, I was in the store till 2 a.m. selling shoes and putting shoes on people's feet.
That's awesome.
That's that's how it is, right? So I was part of it. I just was away.
Ben, you know what they say in real estate, if people don't know you, they're not doing business with you.
Exactly. That's why the Built World podcast works with top of mind public relations, because being a best kept secret sure doesn't pay the bills.
Paula Uspa-Abbott, the brains behind Top of Mind PR, is a former real estate journalist, so she knows exactly what makes the media pay attention.
And let's be real, getting in the press isn't just about bragging rights. It's about building credibility, landing deals, and making sure the right people know your name.
Whether it's top-tier media coverage, killer storytelling, or just making sure you're the one people think of first, Top of Mind PR has you covered.
Want to stand out? Hit up topofmind-pr.com or email info@topofmind-pr.com.
Because in real estate, if you're not visible, you're invisible. So growing up in high school, I imagine you spent a lot of time in stores working summers there. Was that kind of your gig, your summer gig was working in the retail store?
A lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot of bonding with my parents, and there were moments I hated it. I would lie,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
But I got to say, I look back, it was the best learning experience I could have ever had. Seeing how people react to things. How do you sell a shoe? Upsell, downsell, adjust. Being, just trying to be thoughtful and learning basic life things.
Yeah.
And it was just really
Dealing with people, customer service.
I think it's one of the biggest flaws in my business, in my industry, where you get to a point you're looking at a contract. And now in this world of Zoom, people say, I don't need to meet with the guy. I can just do it on the phone. And when you're on a Zoom call or you're in a Zoom meeting or in a call even more, people are incredibly more aggressive on a phone call than they are in a Zoom and than they are in person.
Yeah.
And it's just human nature.
Yeah.
And so to this day, I really believe in the importance of traveling to negotiate deals, to be in front of clients, to be in front of opposing counsel, because we're human.
Yeah.
And we got to get deals done.
That's why we do this podcast in person.
I love it.
We refuse to do it on a Zoom. It's
not the same tequila if it's not in person.
Exactly.
Right? It's just different.
It's a different vibe altogether.
Yeah.
So what were you into when you were growing up as a kid? I mean, it sounds like you were, working in the family stores. Did you have any idea career-wise what you wanted to do? Like, was there any hobbies you had that you were?
I mean, look, I loved every sport. I wasn't a great student. I just followed things that I enjoyed doing. I loved playing football. I loved playing basketball. I loved playing baseball.
What year did you graduate high school?
88.
Okay. We graduated the same year.
Oh, get out.
We're the same vintage.
Ah.
Look at that.
Where'd you go?
Oh, I'm sorry. You graduated 88.
I graduated 88.
Okay. I graduated in 92. I started high school in 88.
Yeah. I graduated University of Miami in 92.
Oh, 92. Okay. So we're 4 years difference. And you said you weren't a good student.
I was fine.
Yeah.
Right? It was the thing for me was learning how to focus, and I was interested in other things, is the truth. And
were you good at any subjects, or what subjects were you most drawn towards?
Math.
Math.
I was more drawn to math. I hated to read.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the saddest, weirdest thing in the world, right? But because it's all I do all day. I hated writing.
Yeah.
As well. I loved math.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it. Even thought about being a math major for like 10 seconds when I got to undergrad. Till I took, not calculus, but the theory of calculus, and I was like, oh no, I'm not a theory guy. I'm a pragmatist.
Yeah.
But that's what I was good at. I really enjoyed sports. But for me, between the family business and the dynamics of being first generation American and everything else that you were doing, I think I found a passion for public interest, and in a lot of different ways. And one of my greatest mentor, and I couldn't even realize at the time, was my grandmother, who was always very active in the community, in particularly the Jewish community, and followed her passion and interests. And I think that really rubbed off on me in all kinds of funny ways. And I had a little bit of a health scare in high school, and it really changed the way I thought about things.
What kind of health scare did you have?
They found a growth on my abdomen.
Okay.
Coming back from water polo practice.
That's a fucking no joke sport right there. Water polo.
Yeah, no joke.
That's a man sport right there,
Look,
Ben.
I wasn't good at it.
Ben couldn't do that shit.
Dude, that's a lot of swimming.
It's a lot of swimming.
A lot of treading water.
Yeah.
That treading stuff, that is rough.
Yeah,
man.
it's rough. And there's a lot of kicking and punching below the water.
Everyone's trying to drown you.
Yeah, everyone's trying to drown you.
Dirtiest sport I ever played in my life.
It is the dirtiest sport. Yeah.
I bet.
But, I went out for it because I had some friends doing it, and I said, why not? Let me try. And not because and I gave it a shot, and I came home from practice one day and my mom's like, "What's that on your stomach?" And next thing you know, I'm going to a doctor and they see something and they didn't like it, and a biopsy. Next thing you know, I'm having surgery. That was not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sappy guy, so I can get emotional about it, but I actually talk about not being great in school. I remember getting back to school and falling asleep. I was in AP history and I could not, 7:30 in the morning. And I just missed 2 months of school or 8 weeks of school from this big surgery, and thank God everything went well. Everything was fine. And I'm sitting there, I'm like out. Every day the teacher's calling my parents, have him have café cubano before he comes into class. Like, I can't take it anymore. He's always sleeping. He's like, my parents are you kidding me? My parents started making me Cuban coffee. It didn't work either.
Hilarious.
I'd be out. I was just probably not ready to go back to school, but I did.
Or ready for AP history at 7:30. Goddamn.
Who could?
Yeah.
Right? That's it. But, I started to find my stride in other things, which is like public service and service organizations.
During high school?
Yeah.
Like, what were you into?
I was in Junior Optimist and like service, becoming like service clubs. And I remember the advisor to the club threw me out because he's like, "You're too interested in sports. You're too interested in other things. You're not doing what you're supposed to do here." Best thing I ever did. Because when I got my head together, I went to him and said, "I'd like to come back in." I ended up president of that club, right? And I ended up creating, listen, there were not big programs. It was like I was in high school and trying to figure out, but I just had this urgency, this desire to do something always. And so I remember setting up this thing at Miami Children's Hospital where people in the club would go visit cancer patients, right, on the weekends. I remember if there was a walkathon, you're raising money, whatever it was, whatever that was required to do, we were there.
Yeah.
And there was a group of 15, 20 of us that did it. And then it turned out that advisor happened to be Mr. Glick. He happened to be the head of the yearbook. And he, next thing you know, I'm on the yearbook staff. And the next thing I'm managing one of I don't know what that title was, some editor or some sort. And I started to realize there was somewhere in there that, it's like partly what came from being in the store and being around people. Yeah, in no means do I consider myself not a sharp guy. I think I'm, relatively smart person. I just wasn't focused on the books.
Yeah.
I liked engaging with people. I liked interacting with people. I like problem solving. I always did.
Yeah.
Good and bad. And so I started to pursue those interests. And the truth is, in a million years, I would have never thought I'd be a sports attorney. Like, I mean, it just wasn't in my, not in my brain.
So you graduate high school in 88, you go to UM, and you get your degree, you got a bachelor's in arts there. What was your major?
I was a business major.
Major?
I was a double major, finance and entrepreneurship.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you got a little entrepreneur streak in you as well.
Yeah, listen, when you grow up with family business, how do you not have
a family of hustlers?
And,
for sure.
and your mom was also in the family business, I imagine.
She was, but at one point she had her own store too.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
What was her store?
It was women's clothing.
Oh, cool. On Miami Beach as well.
On Lincoln Road. It was like, literally there was a block. And it was like the 400 block on Lincoln Road. And my father and grandfather were on one side of the street and my mom was on the other side of the street.
That's so cool.
So, made for some interesting dynamics at all the times.
Man, college at UM in the late 80s had to be wild in Miami.
Amazing.
Were you hanging out at the Mutiny like some of our other guests?
No comment. No comment. I'm not sure I remember where I was all the time, but I was that guy. I get to UM and I said, "Hey, I want to be an athlete at UM. I really do. I don't care what sport it is. I got to try." And I never rode a day in my life, and I tried out for the crew team. Made the team, which was nuts. I wasn't particularly good, but I made the team.
Crew's no joke too.
That was intense. That was really phenomenal.
You're picking like the hardest sports, water polo, crew, like.
I'm stubborn, man.
Yeah.
Look, I'm dogged. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah.
Like that's always been my way, and I stick to it. I'm a kind of stick to it kind of guy. And I did that for a year, became an RA, and then I'm a geek.
Yeah.
The truth is, where I started becoming much better in English and writing was at UM. They had this writing center. I don't know if either one of you went to UM, but they had this writing center. Any student can go and take advantage of it. And you had to take English Lit, English, your freshman, I think sophomore year. And I was that guy that took advantage of it. I was so
cool.
scared
Yeah.
of, like, after I was so bad in it in high school, I was so scared of it that I went.
Yeah.
Every paper I had to write, I'd sit with a grad student, whoever, was a tutor, and like go over my paper. And it was really weird. But at one point, and I can't remember exactly when, something clicked. And all of a sudden, the words on the page weren't so jumbled. And all of a sudden, I could process things a particular way. And then everything changed. And look, law school, I could have easily gone and gotten a business degree. It was like 50-50. But I ended up student body president at UM. I'm a geek.
Yeah.
And I did all these things involved in my community and try to do things. And
did you have any jobs throughout college, or was it still just working in the family business?
Working in the family business.
Yeah.
And then when I became student body president.
And you were living on campus?
I was living on campus. That was kind of the deal with my parents.
Yeah.
I was like, I almost went actually to USC in Southern California. And I was like, I just want to have a real college experience.
Yeah.
My sister graduated from UM before me. She did every summer at FIU and Miami-Dade and everything to graduate early, because inexpensive credit, like the whole thing. And she did all of that. And she was a commuter. And I was like, I begged my parents to be able to live on campus.
Yeah.
And thankfully they let me do it. And I'm really appreciative of that. My parents made a lot of sacrifices for all of us. And I talk about it all the time that I've been able to lead a life that my parents didn't have the luxury of leading because they sacrificed for us.
Yeah. At least you can recognize that. There's a lot of people that don't recognize that.
True.
Ben, you and I are all about prop tech. And if there's one tool we absolutely cannot live without for our commercial real estate brokerage business, it's Vista.
Absolutely. Vista is incredible. We use it every single day. And we're always wondering, how do they do this? Every evening we get an email from them with real-time closed transactions. No more waiting around for months for the property appraiser to finally update.
Yeah, whether you're doing industrial, retail, office, land deals, they have every closed transaction. And it's not just the speed, Ben. The details are on point. Seller and buyer info, contact details, phone numbers, emails, everything is accurate.
It's hands down our top prospecting tool to farm for warehouse deals in Hialeah. Vista keeps us one step ahead always. It's also the best way to search for comps when putting together opinions of values for clients.
Head on over to Vista.com and use code BuiltWorld and get 30 days free access today. VIZZDA.com.
And when you were in college, you mentioned you could go business or law. Did you have any, you were starting to figure out what was interesting, or where was kind of your direction?
I wanted to change the world. Like I had that mindset. I know it's naive and it's whatever you want to call it. It just at the time, at that age, you're 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like I really believe that an individual can make a difference. I still to a certain extent believe that within limitations, with certain limitations. And so I, as I was thinking it through, like if I was going to go into politics, which I eventually did, into government service, I thought the more flexible degree was going to be a law degree, and that was what broke the tie. And Tad Foote, who was the university president of the University of Miami, who became a mentor of mine, he passed away. Really wonderful guy. Taught me a lot about professionalism and a variety of other things and thoughtfulness. He was the dean of the law school at WashU, where I ended up going to law school. And he's the one who said, you should think about going to WashU. I think you have an interesting future ahead of you. And I think you grew up in Miami and you're so close to your family. I think it'd be really a great experience for you to see somewhere else.
But how did you get connected with him?
Well, as student body president,
okay,
I would meet with him regularly.
Okay. But you'd meet with him and he worked for UM at the time and then went to WashU.
No, he was the university president at the University of Miami.
Okay.
He came from WashU
to
Miami.
I got you.
He was the guy that, was, I guess if you look at some of those 40 under 40 films, a little bit controversial because he was a lot about academics, but I think he was a misunderstood guy. I think he was really, for me as an individual, he really was a tremendous mentor and deserves a lot of credit. And
it's very cool how just one person can make have such an influence on you. And so he was the University of Miami president.
Yep.
And you graduated in 92. But then you graduated from Washington U in 1995. So you went directly from
I went direct,
to Washington U.
Yeah, I went directly to law school. And you
Okay.
want to talk about, I'm also a first generation lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So I had no idea what I was walking into. I really didn't. I should have, but I didn't. That summer, actually, interestingly enough, I went to Israel with a bunch of friends on a great trip, and had that was my pre-law school trip, and from friends from the community and otherwise, and walked into law school completely unprepared, and struggled a little bit. I won't pretend. And when I started to struggle, I went to the things that I knew best, which was you continue to grind, you can't quit, you try to find mentors that have an interest in you, and look for those extracurricular things that, the things you're passionate about and you enjoy. And that's what I started to do. And one thing led to another.
And how'd you like Washington? That's a different scene.
Well, it's in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, WashU in St. Louis was, it was great. It was so different. Like, I remember my 1L year, you're getting to know everybody. There's like a party, and the call time's like 9 o'clock. I grew up in Miami. You don't show up at a party first of all, you don't show up at a party on time. Second of all, no, there was a call party, the call time at 9 o'clock. Like, right? So I roll in at 11 o'clock at night. They're like, where the hell are you? We thought you got lost. You were dead. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? It were the nicest people on the planet, like all these Midwesterners. And it really was a different vibe.
Yeah.
And it was a different culture and environment. And it was hard for me. It was definitely hard to be away from family and be away from, but really being surrounded by good people, nice people, and not getting caught up in this whole, you need to be number one in the class. I believe in, I'm a relationship person. I just want to do the best I can, and I want everybody to do the best they can.
It's so interesting, because looking through, we were looking, at your career prior to you coming in, and seeing your trajectory. It's like, man, how did this, major sports team M&A guy start out at HUD? And now I get it. Like, hearing your background and understanding you're obsessed with public service and all those things. Is that why you ended up going to HUD out of school, or what was?
Yeah, I had no interest in going to a law firm. Zero. That's not to say I didn't interview with people, because that's the thing you do, but I was not interested. I really wanted public service. The government had these legal honors programs that were fantastic for people who had interest in public interest, and at least at the time, and you can get some really interesting experiences. So yeah, I get this offer to go to the, HUD's legal honors program. I'm like, this is amazing. And I get to go to Washington, D.C., which is that was a dream, that opportunity. And it was a really boring job. I'm not going to pretend.
How long did you do that boring job for?
Well, in classic me, I'm getting bored, and I'm watching the national politics, and I start volunteering on the Clinton Gore campaign.
Okay.
And it started as so I have a full-time job, and one night a week I'm going to the campaign. And then it turns into 2 nights a week I'm going to the campaign. The next thing you know, it's going 3 nights and 4 nights. And I'm volunteering with the Adelante con Clinton Gore, like the Latino outreach group. And I'm doing my thing. And the next thing you know, I'm going to the convention in Chicago, and I'm on the floor of the convention. These are like crazy things that
And what year was the convention in Chicago?
96.
96.
And, I saw the general counsel of my agency on his free time at the campaign, and Nelson, which you'll notice is a theme for me. I'm lucky to find a mentor who cares. And then I really, I don't want to say rely, but I really seek their advice and guidance and follow through on that stuff. And so Nelson asked me if I liked my job. He was the general counsel of the agency, and me being 24, 25 years old said, no, my job stinks. And the next day I get called to the front office at the agency, which is like through a different security wall. You got to get through that's where the cabinet secretary sits, the general counsel sits. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm fired. Excuse my language. And I'm like, that's it. Me and my big mouth. And I walk in, he's like, listen, I got an assignment for you. I'll never forget this, right? It's like, I need you to figure out the inadvertent consequences of repealing the 1937 Housing Act. And I'm looking at him going, blinking like, huh? What'd you just say to me? He's like, yeah, your immediate boss didn't want to take the assignment, so I'm giving it to you. Oh, I'm like, I have no seniority. I know nothing about I'm still learning. Like, I'm really green. You can pick any of your other members of your class. You can find other attorneys to work with you, but I need it in 2 weeks because I have to present to Congress. And then, all right. So in 2 weeks, he has a 200-page report. Like, wow. We create this 200-page report. I couldn't tell you half of what's in that report other than every citation reference to the 1937 Housing Act and what we're trying to figure out. The Republicans controlled the House. This is right before the government, or right after the government shut down. I think it's right before. And it's like deja vu with what's going on today. But anyway, so I'm briefing Nelson Diaz, who's a wonderful man, and I brief him a few times. And so he's ready, prepared to present this report to Congressional Subcommittee on Housing. And then he'd say, hey, can you brief me one more time? Sure. Hey, why don't you get in the car with me and carry the box into the car with the I don't know how many copies we had to hand out to the committee. I said, sure. In the car, going over the facts with him again. He goes, why don't you carry it with me into the room? I said, of course. Yeah, whatever you need. But I'm starting to get this feeling that something's about to happen. And of course, the door kicks open. And you're like, Irwin, why don't you do the presentation? You know it better than I do. So they were expecting the general counsel of an agency to talk about this report. And now I'm talking about it with congressional staff. And at the end of the presentation, they offered me a job to go work for them. And I'm like a little bit, I don't know what to say or do. I'm just kind of looking at them. And Nelson says, you can't have him. I already recommended him for a job at the White House. It was surreal.
Yeah.
It was just really surreal that I'm this like first generation American that's like kind of like, from Miami, I didn't expect this to happen. I wanted it to happen, didn't expect it to happen, but now I'm like, oh my God, I got a job at the White House and I'm working in White House counsel's office. And so HUD, the White House, that was the transition. And then.
So you start working in the White House what year?
96. I was like 1 year out of law school.
Wow.
A little bit more than 1 year out of law school, which is cuckoo. And I'm doing cabinet selection type work, ethics related work, whatever they need.
Yeah.
I don't know enough to be smart about anything. I just know whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to do it the best I can.
Yeah.
And try to figure it out. And I start doing that stuff. And, after a while, I get asked if I want to go back to HUD and work as a special assistant in the Office of the General Counsel, because now Andrew Cuomo has become the secretary of HUD, and we need a special assistant in that office. So people that were my bosses suddenly had, I don't want to say reporting to me, but now I was leveled up to be in meetings with all senior staff in the General Counsel's office, et cetera. And I was doing that for a little bit, and interesting experience. That's a definitely interesting management style that he had. And
who, Mr. Cuomo?
Yes.
Yeah. I bet.
Really smart, very passionate, very driven, very focused, very driven.
What kind of? What can we talk about his management style? What kind of management style?
Sounds aggressive.
Was he a yeller?
I've seen him yell before. And the thing is, at the time, also, I'm not thinking of it. I'm not judging him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of him as this passionate guy. This is what he wants to get accomplished. He wants to get so much accomplished, so much done.
Yeah.
It's funny over time. You look back and say, well, would I have done something different? Maybe I have a different style.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, he was a very driven, focused guy, and it's funny because years later he became a client because I was walking down Lexington Avenue in New York, and I get this call, and he's like, do you recognize this voice? I'm like, oh boy, what happened? He's like, I need to hire you to keep the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. And that was 2013, but that's a jump of lots of years. I worked there, and then I got asked to go back to the White House to work for Al Gore, in-house counsel Gore. And I actually was in the White House during impeachment.
Wow.
So the Monica Lewinsky drama, I was there during that time. And
what a circus that must have been.
Oh my God.
Oh, there are stories.
You got any compromising pictures of anyone in the White House?
I only have compromising stories. No, just kidding. I know nothing.
We want the pictures. We want the pics. That's what we want. That's what our listeners like. They want the pictures.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I didn't have an iPhone.
Yeah.
It was like none of that. But it was, what an experience, really was. So yeah, and then I got asked to go from there to work on the campaign, and I worked for Al Gore. I was one of the early staffers on the campaign. I was one of 3 attorneys on the campaign. Moved the campaign from D.C. to Nashville. Was on the plane for the recount. The night of the recount, I was here. I'm Cuban. I'm from Miami. I speak Spanish. I'm barred in Florida. It was like, you got to be on that plane. And very emotional roller coaster. I saw the best and worst of everybody.
I bet.
I won't of both parties. Like I really, over time, I'm the biggest moderate you'll find. I'm not a one party supporter, a type of person. And I think that was really a defining time for me, which was like,
You got to see some true colors there, huh?
of everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, both sides, literally, like you really saw.
Were you just disgusted by everything?
Yeah, that's what I can imagine.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah,
I mean,
I bet.
I'm not gonna lie. There were moments where you're like, are you kidding? And you'd catch people on our side of the table not saying things that were fully accurate. We'd see the other side of the table not fully accurate. People talk about paid protesters today. Oh, and during the recount, lots of paid protesters from our other side. I'm sure we had them too. I just didn't know about them. I shouldn't say I know. But I knew. Oops, sorry. There were things you say. I was like, wait, is this the way it's supposed to work? Right? Like, is this like? I had people that were friends with me during that time calling me up saying, "I hate your guts because you're supporting Gore." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I can't fight for. Is it right or wrong? Like, if I believe in this, you automatically. That's not the way life should be. That's not the way I've ever been. I don't shun someone because I disagree with you. I actually welcome the discussion." And I saw that. Listen, it was rookie league in comparison to what's happening today.
Yeah, I bet.
But it really was an eye-opening experience. And I went back and I worked for Al Gore because my job was to shut down the corporation.
Shut down what corporation?
Gore 2000.
Oh, okay.
Gore Lieberman, whatever
Yeah.
it was. And look, what people don't realize is the last presidential election to receive federal matching funds was Al Gore. George Bush did not accept federal matching funds, so he can go over a limit. Gore was limited to $60-something million of spending because he was taking federal matching funds. And so there were a bunch of rules related to same. And it was just, so every contract we wrote, everything we did had to be audited by the Federal Election Commission because we took federal money. So I wanted to be a good soldier, and I stayed as long as I could to try to walk through the audit and deal with all that stuff. But I was like, I need out of the space. I need to become a better lawyer. I need to become a better person. And
you were getting. It was just sick of being in the swamp, huh?
I made some great.
Irwin was feeling dirty.
Yeah, that's what he was feeling dirty.
Listen, I made some amazing friends, like lifelong friends, and again, I saw some of the best things in people, and I saw some of the worst. But it was really it was time, and that's when I went to law firm life. Because if we would have won, my life would have been very different.
Yeah.
Or probably very different. You never know, but more than likely very different. I went to law firm life, and I had to learn how to be now a private sector lawyer versus a public sector lawyer.
Some of you might know that I'm in the middle of building a Live Local project right now, and finding an internet provider was way more annoying than it should have been. Endless acronyms, pricing all over the place, and me chasing these guys for proposals. Then luckily, I came across Celerity Fiber, South Florida's boutique internet provider for new developments and multifamily communities. Working with them feels like working with a company your friend owns. They actually answer calls and texts, send quotes fast, and are genuinely great to work with. Celerity designs and installs fiber internet built for modern living. Fast, reliable, and ready from day one. From luxury high-rises to affordable communities, they deliver high-speed, scalable internet with white glove service and local support. The kind big internet service providers just can't match. So if you want to future-proof your property and keep your residents happy, check out celerityfiber.com. That's spelled Celerity, fiber.com, and let them know the Built World sent you. Celerity Fiber, powering connections, elevating experiences. What was it like in the White House? I mean, as a kid, you think everyone, you look at something like the White House and you're like, it's so like professional rules those are like the top of the top. But now as you get older, you're like, it's just a complete shit show. Like everyone's winging it. Everyone's winging it. What was it like being on the inside?
Look, it was, at the beginning, it's a rush. I mean, every day you want to walk into the building, there's a code, like you have a security badge, and to get into the security badge, and then there's the way the whole system is like, how cool is this?
Yeah.
I got it. Outside of the work experience, imagine me being able to tell my parents, hey, Mom, Dad, why don't you come up to DC to sit in on a radio address of the President of the United States and then take a picture with him? I mean,
Insane.
that's the coolest thing in the world, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you guys know, I talk about we barely know each other, but you can already tell I talk about my family a lot. Whether it's my parents, my kids. If you get me talking about my kids' baseball, I'll talk for an hour about it. But that's the way I am. And so to be able to give that experience to my family, yes, I was loving every second of it, but I loved being able to share that with my family. And so, yeah, it's weird. And like, there are some elements that are so beautiful and so historic. Like, we had the perks. One of the biggest perks, because you didn't get paid well to be there, but one of the perks was you could take a certain number of people through a tour. You put their names in security, they get run, and they're allowed to come in for a tour of the building. You learn the tour.
Yeah.
And you learn the history of the old executive office building. It's like, and this, stained glass is X, and that desk, the Resolute desk that sits in the vice president's office is a signature. It's this wild thing. And that's like the fun part. The work part, look, it was at best stressful, at worst insane, because you knew you were always under the microscope, and the things we were doing could impact others, right? But look, my favorite thing ever, working in the White House, both for the president, well, more for the vice president, the president. The Vice President Gore had a thing where if he was going to your hometown and you made a request to the right staff, they would try to accommodate you to advance the project. You're not doing necessarily your job, but to go and do an advanced job. Like, you'd fly to that community and your parents would get to meet the vice president in your hometown. I was able to bring my parents and my sister and my nephew and nieces to Air Force Two on the tarmac in Fort Lauderdale and in Miami.
That's sick.
Yeah. So, but that's the fun part. The work part was, you really had to recognize that the things we did, the work we had to do was serious and had implications. And because of the way Congress operated and stuff, like, we had to memorize so much stuff. We weren't, like, if you created a note, that's a new document. A document is that subpoenable, so you have to, like, remember things. It's a very challenging job. I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than the campaign. The campaign was hell. That campaign was, I worked 20 hours a day. Oh, not every day, but pretty often. I used to work out 2 to 3 times a day on the campaign for sanity. So
you were ready for private practice?
I was ready for private practice. Well, no, you know what? I was scared. I'll be honest. And someone's going to see this and say, no, I wasn't trained like first-year associates are and second-year associates. What was my topic? What was my substantive experience? Like, what was the training that I received? I received training in a public environment. I received training that what I learned is that everything I do is not in a vacuum, that it's under a microscope. And so when you make suggestions and proposals, there's the law, then how the law is going to be perceived and how your actions are going to be perceived is relevant. Well, maybe not to all clients, but it is to many. And so that was my style, and that was I don't know if it's maturity or experience that I brought to the table. And the firm that hired me knew that I was green. I didn't know how to write a contract. I didn't know anything about financing a stadium or financing anything. I knew what they saw in me, and I'm so appreciative, was that I was a hard worker and I was going to be focused on trying to succeed and doing the best I can.
So what did this firm hire you for, and what was the name of the firm?
I went to Foley & Lardner, a large Midwestern firm, wonderful people, wonderful place. And it's actually where I met my wife. I was there, and they looked at me as a regulatory lawyer. I knew campaign finance and government ethics. They had a campaign finance practice with a government affairs practice, and I was doing some work for that, for corporations instead of candidates. I started doing some shoe leather lobbying, so I was on Capitol Hill walking the halls.
Still live in D.C.?
At that time, I was still living in D.C. Another example of my parents thinking I was moving home, but I ended up staying in D.C. And I, some shoe leather lobbying, and I was doing some other things. I mean, really random stuff. Some stuff was bankruptcy. It was trying, to their credit, they said, look, we think you're smart. Let's find out what you enjoy doing in this setting. We know what you enjoy doing over there.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can figure out what you enjoy doing here. Now, what they said is, you're 6 years out of law school, we're going to start you as a second year, right? You're not starting as a sixth year from a compensation or a seniority perspective. But on a handshake, if you do well, we'll skip you back up. And so I floundered some, trying to figure it out, and again, trying to identify a good mentor. And
that's pretty cool for a law firm to take that on and let you explore and give you that kind of freedom.
Always will be indebted to them.
That's super cool.
It was great. It's a different era today. It would be very difficult to do that the way we're the way firms are set up today.
How did you get that job? Did they find you, or did you reach out to them?
So I reached out to my law school.
Oh, okay.
And I was saying, I reached out to my law school and I said, look, I'm looking for one of the deans of law school. I said, a firm that has ties to Florida, that is in DC, and, you know, prominent alumni from there. And I was introduced to a guy named Jim Bierman, wonderful guy. And it was an informational meeting. It wasn't supposed to be an interview. Actually, it was an interview. And I went to meet with Jim in 3000 K Street, and we were talking, and he's like, we just started chatting. And when it was done, he's like, you sound like a good guy. Would you be interested in talking to us about maybe firm life? And I was like, yeah. And I remember walking out of the place, calling my parents, saying, oh man, this was different. This is cool. So yeah, it was a unique opportunity, unique space. And in the end, I don't want to say I grew up, but it became, I needed something different as my careers evolved. But really, I have a lot of respect for that firm to this day, and such deep appreciation for them.
Did you ever figure out what you liked?
Public-private partnership, sports.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How many years in did you figure it out?
So the first deal I ever did, well, not the first deal, I'm sorry. The first client I ever brought to the firm, and I was an associate, not a partner, not a counsel. There was a deal in Miami, and the firm did not have a Miami office at the time. It was a workforce housing deal. Like, they needed to apply for a HUD grant, and it was a public-private partnership, and it involved environmental contamination. I was like, I'm in. And I figured out a way, and I got the environmental specialist at the firm. I got a real estate focus at the firm, and we ended up winning. We come up very close to winning the RFP. We actually ended up then negotiated ourselves to a winning position. Incredibly successful opportunity. It was so cool. And it was great. And I ended up writing this grant for the client. It wins $1 million grant from HUD, of all places. Go figure. Like, it's just the world's coming together. And my mentor asked me, what do you want to do? You've been here a couple of years. I said, I really want to do public-private partnerships. I just love it. I love that interaction. I love engaging with the public sector and trying to find synergies that can be interesting. And I said, that's interesting. And I said, look, and again, this is me being young at the time still. I think maybe I'm, 30, whatever it is. And I say, if this isn't the right place for that, if we're not going to do a lot of public-private partnerships, I understand maybe it's time for me to move to Miami, but I want to pursue my passions, which is, there's a theme in my stuff. Like, I pursue the things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a role in my success. I think it plays a role in what my clients see and how driven I can become. And the firm, 9 months later, my mentor was like, stay cool. Don't rush. We got this. Let's think this through. His name is Rick Weiss. He retired young, best guy in the universe, the best mentor on the planet. I love him, his family, everything. Like, really, truly great guy. I don't talk to him enough anymore, but that's my fault. The firm gets hired by Major League Baseball's Council of Relocation Committee, because they want to relocate the Montreal Expos. And he asked me if I wanted to work on the deal. Rick, my mentor, is going to lead the transaction. And I'm like, yes. So, I don't. There's no other answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, hell yes, like, absolutely. And there was several other associates staffed on the deal who had transactional experience, real transactional experience, had done multiple, whether it's M&A or finance, other deals. And but what they've never had done is work with government bidders and government actors. And within 2 weeks, basically, I was the only associate on the deal. And I was engaging with the relocation committee, and I was engaging with these other government entities, and I was reviewing their proposals, and I was working through it. And probably for the next 6 months, I didn't say anything. You can tell how talkative I am, and that's before I finish my tequila. Like, if I finish this tequila, you won't be able to stop me from talking. But really, I really was quiet. For 6 months, I didn't say a word. And I had Jerry Reinsdorf in the room. I had this guy, Tom Ostertag, who was the general counsel of Major League Baseball at the time. Bob Dupé, who was the president of Major League Baseball. Rick, my mentor. And I'd sit in this room and just be like big eyes. Like on one level, I can't believe I'm here. Like, how am I here? And every day that awe starts to come off a little bit, and you start to get a little bit more focused, and you start to understand it. And the turnaround moment for me was several months into the deal, as we're creating the finalists. We're going from 7, 8 cities to 2 or 3. there was a presentation by a government entity that was spectacular, except I didn't believe one word they said. And they walked out of the room, and I start whispering to Rick, like, that's not going to happen. And Jerry, who I talk a lot about people I love. I really do love these people. They're like really special people in my life and how they impacted my life. But Jerry, who's a personality, Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls and the White Sox, and really smart guy. Jerry says, what are you whispering for? You don't talk for all this time. Like, open your freaking mouth. Like, you know, like you're like, I'm like, what? And he's like, come on, talk to the whole room. I was like, all right, Jerry, I don't think they're ever going to do anything as you said, because if you listen to the sequencing of it and from a regulatory perspective, and I just go ding, 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 he's like, you're wrong. I said, I'm just telling you my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm the most junior guy in this room. I'm telling you my opinion.
What city was this? Can you say?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Because it's not public. So, because
they eventually end up going to DC.
They eventually go to DC, and the city that made that proposal, it turned out I was right, because Jerry's like, fine, let's call them back to do a second proposal, and he gave me the 3 questions to ask them. And he asked the 3 questions, and he flunked all. They like truly flunked. Like, and he BlackBerries me a message like, I think they just like, you know, I think they just seceded from the union. Like it was like one of these like funny jokes, and we're like, so they walk out the door, and he's like, turns to me and goes, you need to talk more. And I was like, yes, sir. And that was, you know, and again, you know, that was a turning point. And that became what they became, the Nationals. And I found a way to, you know, with the team as a whole, we figured out a way to close the deal, because people don't realize that that deal almost went to mediation the last second. Like many stadium projects, you're at the finish line, and you have one contract, which is a term sheet, and you have to go for your second final vote. And now there's pressure and all these things, and it's a lot of.
How many parties are involved in a deal like that? I can't even imagine.
Well, so in Washington, it's interesting because since there's no state legislature, it's just the DC Council. So in that instance, you have MLB, who in that instance own the team. So the team is a party, and the city council is a party, the district government.
But who builds the stadium? Is that like a private developer too? Or?
Depends.
Okay.
In that instance, the public wanted to build the stadium, and the public wanted to take on cost overrun risk. Whoever builds it usually takes the overrun risk. So they wanted to take on the overrun risk. So it was actually simple from a learning experience perspective, but maybe the best deal I could have ever done, because I like to be involved with, because I could learn concepts. Because when you start introducing 6, 7, 8 parties, like if I don't know my building blocks, it can get very confusing really quickly. So I had basically had, you know, I had probably two parties. Well, DC Sports Entertainment Commission, the DC government.
You know, Felipe, ever since we moved into Bureau, my productivity has been through the roof. I mean, I might actually be getting things done for once.
The energy at Bureau just makes work fun. Plus, with 8 locations across South Florida, from South Miami all the way to Hollywood, there's no excuse for not finding a spot to get your shit done, Ben.
And we're not alone. Over 500 local companies call Bureau home. Everything from creative agencies and real estate firms to tech startups, law firms, and media companies. It's a melting pot of brilliant people, and we don't include ourselves in that category.
We definitely don't include ourselves in that category. Bureau really has space for anyone, whether you're flying solo or have a team. There are suites starting at 100 square feet all the way up to 2,000 square feet. They also don't try to lock you into long-term agreements, and everything is month to month.
Let's not forget the important stuff either. The coffee is top tier, staff is incredible, and has a very entrepreneurial vibe. It's not just a workspace, it's a place where work actually gets done.
That's right, Ben. So if you want to level up your workday like we try to do every day, check out Bureau. You might even catch us sipping some espressos between podcast sessions.
Or tequila.
Definitely tequila.
Tell Bureau the Built World sent you, and you'll get 50% off your first month's membership. See you out there. Cheers.
Later.
And is that normal for like a MLB to own a team? I thought teams were privately owned.
They are, but so back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, it ties to the Marlins, right? So Jeffrey Luria was coming to Miami. He was leaving. He was the owner of Montreal. He was buying the team from the guys that own now the Red Sox, John Henry, to have the money to buy the Marlins. MLB had to buy the Expos, right? So they had the liquidity so that John could buy the Red Sox, Luria could buy the Marlins, and now Major League Baseball was going to hold this team for a very short period of time and sell it. As once they figured out where they were moving the team, that's when they would sell it. It was a calculated risk. You don't see that. This is not like it happens all the time. This is a unique dynamic. And I don't think we've seen anything like it since. And so, yeah, in that instance, baseball owned the team. So
that's really as simple as one of those deals gets.
It's as simple as
like
it really was. I mean, it was complicated. It was challenging.
Yeah.
It was all these things. But from a party's perspective, it was simple. I'm working on 2 stadium deals right now. Can't say where they are. Not in Florida, though, that I have multiple local governments, a state government, and a team. And that's just the warm-up. That's before the private developer that's going to need to come in for the ancillary development. So we can end up with 7, 8 parties.
Yeah.
So I have a list of I'm trying to say, these are the definitive agreements we'll have to be negotiated to complete the transaction. And it's the list is whoa. But that experience of working with this smaller set of parties really allowed me to learn the minutia of various pieces. I'll give you an example. Because Major League Baseball and the team, and because the public was going to be building the stadium, we had to negotiate what's called a project program statement, or what I call a project program statement, which is defining what is going to be in the building, right? You're building me X for Y. I'm going to pay this amount of rent. What are you giving me? Right? Well, it's going to be comparable to Major League Baseball stadiums. That's not really enough. You can't give me a sentence that says that. You're gonna give me the Trop, or you're gonna give me Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium. What are you gonna do? So working with the consultants again, this isn't even legal as much. I mean, there's a legal part of it, which is we need to define what we're getting, and we need to be very clear about that. But there's also learning about what components should go into a building.
Yeah.
How does a building function? How does all that stuff come together? And I was able to, because there weren't 20 parties at the table, I did go to the architects' meetings. I sat in and listened to the comparability stuff. And I negotiated from the term sheet to the definitive agreement with the business experts, because I wasn't far from an expert. And I was able to listen to the rationale for why we need X, or why do we need Y, or why do we need X kind of square footage, or what's a pinch point over here, or from a concessionary perspective. And listening and learning in that dynamic, it's impacted my career. Because a lot of people are I just want to rush to get the contract, or I'm right and you're wrong. Context is meaningful, especially when you're negotiating a public-private partnership in this complexity. And so I was very lucky not only to be able to work on that deal, but to work on a deal at that structure. Because, from there I worked on Marlins Stadium. Was
that your next deal?
That was my next stadium deal, yeah.
Marlins Stadium.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was that experience like?
That was wild.
That was kind of a shit show, huh?
Was it? I don't know anything about it.
I mean, listen, there was a lot.
I need to sip my tequila before getting into this.
I mean, this is when was the stadium built? The Marlins Stadium built?
I believe the stadium deal was completed in 2008, I want to say, and then it was completed by 2010 or 11.
There was a lot of public money that went to that.
There was, but not as much as you would think from a market perspective.
From what perspective?
Median market perspective. Yeah. That deal was very interesting parties. And, what happened is after Nationals deal, Commissioner Sidley had heard something about me, and I was told he wanted to meet me and to go up to New York to have a meeting with him and get to know me. And I chatted with him, and he said, "I understand you're from Miami." And I said, "Yes." He's like, "Well, what do you think of the Marlins?" And I said, "Well, team hates the city hates the team, county hates the team, city hates the county. And guess what? The city and the county hate each other too. So it's a very complicated set of facts." He's like, "And what do you think the issue is?" I said, "Trust. It's a trust issue. No one at the table trusts each other. It's even if they meant well, even if everyone comes in with a clean hand, I'm ready to do a deal, fatigue. There's just a lot of deal fatigue." And I don't want to characterize anyone one way or the other. It's just it was a lot of fatigue. So,
but most of the money came from the city of Miami, didn't it?
No, Miami-Dade County.
Miami-Dade County, huh?
Yeah. Well, and the way it's a lot of money came from the professional sports franchise and facilities tax, which is bed tax money, which, interesting enough, during all the debate, and I'll go back to some of the dynamics of the deal, but part of the debate we had, this money can go to schools and go to hospitals. It was prohibited by statute, and maybe it's changed since then, but it could only go to things that could generate tax dollars. It could not go to schools and hospitals, but that didn't mean it wasn't going to stop people from arguing. And, people talk about how'd you go from politics to sports? There is so much politics in sports that you want to talk about. There was a full campaign to block that stadium.
Yeah.
Full campaign. And they failed, the stadium approved, and then someone got recalled, right? What was it called? Mayor Alvarez got recalled as mayor?
I believe so.
Yeah. And whether that was right or wrong, I don't know. That's for others to decide. But it was super political. And was everything that's said in the grand scheme of things accurate? No. Were we going to defend every point? No. Why? Because the more you talk, the more it wasn't going to help the dynamic. We did our best to educate people, but at some point, this is our deal, and this is where we're going to go the best we can. But what I ended up proposing, what I suggested to the commissioner, I don't know if it was in that meeting or in future meetings, is look, if Major League Baseball were to go down, or someone were to go down and say, we're committed to the Miami market, let's sit down and use our best effort to try to figure out if a deal can be done. And if it can't, we'll take the blame. Major League Baseball will take the blame, not the city and the county. Just blame it on us. If you're willing to do that, if we're willing to contemplate that, which is a big deal, maybe we can get people to sit down at the table. And, I can't remember if it was that meeting or soon thereafter, but the next thing you know, he's like, by the way, why don't you go do that? And I was having, without the Marlins even knowing at the time, I was having meetings with the county and the city privately saying, look, we're just trying to figure out if there's an opportunity here to do a deal. And eventually the Marlins were brought in, and I got to work with this guy. There were two guys, Javier Soto and Alfie Mesa. Javi ended up working the Miami Foundation. Now he lives in Denver. I think the Denver Foundation. Alfie was local and did a lot of lobbying work and works for the Marlins today. They were like the government affairs guys for the Marlins, and they were spectacular. Not only are they wonderful people, but they were really spectacular to work with from a strategy perspective. And forget the dynamics of ownership and all the stuff that goes in. We, came up with a plan and made things happen there. But the reality was that deal was public subsidy. I think it was around 70% public subsidy. Remember, Nationals was 98% public subsidy. When you take out New York, you took out New York, San Francisco, St. Louis, you took out some major markets because Miami was a small. Miami's exploding, but Miami was a smaller market, right? When you looked at the median market level, it was in that 67 to 70% public subsidy across the league. So from a league perspective, it didn't look like this crazy outlandish subsidy, but ownership and the way they presented it post-transaction, only added gasoline to the fire and stuff. But I did my job. We got a stadium, and I only wish that I believe in baseball in Miami. I really do.
You and two other people.
I'm telling you, it can work here.
How many people attend those games? It's it's like 1,000 people attend each game, right? It's something like.
Listen, if you go to the World Baseball Classic and you see that stadium alive, it's super cool. If you went to Savannah Bananas in the stadium, you say, holy crap, there's a lot of people in this town that love baseball. They haven't liked the product and they haven't liked the experience. And there's transition to new ownership, and they were showing some improvement at the end of the season, but there's work to be done there. And hopefully they're working on it. And I only wish them success, right? I hope it becomes successful and blows up. I know how much my kids love baseball.
Yeah.
My kid's a baseball junkie. He plays on multiple teams. He won't stop playing. My 7-year-old, my 7-year-old son plays on a team, loves it. My 9-year-old daughter plays baseball. It's the funniest thing because she goes to a game and they're like, oh, she's a girl, she can't hit. And then she whacks the hell out of a ball and holy cow, who is that girl? I love it. I'm a girl dad, right? So whatever, you have that to see that. And then my son, who plays on multiple teams and throws over 58 miles per hour and broke 2 ligaments in my wrist because he throws too hard and I'm getting old. They love baseball, right?
Really?
And that could change over time because the demographics evolve. But I believe baseball has a future here and can be successful.
But but out of all the sports, it's probably the slowest growing out of football, the real football, soccer, basketball, hockey. It's probably the one that's probably seeing the least amount of growth. No.
It's seen growth on the corporate sponsorship level. It's seen growth in a lot of places. It's seen the least amount of growth, I think, from a franchise valuation perspective, though I am bullish post CBA what's going to happen with Major League Baseball teams. But look, if you were going to build an ancillary development project, right? If you're going to build a project around like a real estate development project, like what the Atlanta Braves did, the Battery in Atlanta, which is spectacular. And if you haven't seen it, you should go to a game and then walk around that development, the residential, food, mixed use. It's like, it's alive. And if you really want to have that kind of economic development project, baseball is the best because of the number of events. The second best is, basketball, hockey, right? Because, right, football is the hardest one because you have, 9 to 11 events a year.
Yeah.
Usually, now granted, lots of stadiums are trying hard to push additional events. Because what you want, like if you're a restaurant, you want people to come through as often as possible.
Yeah.
You don't want them to come only 14 times a year.
I mean, listen, the placement of stadiums is so important for the vibrancy of downtown areas. Like you go to Coors Field in downtown and it's spectacular.
Yep.
Where they put the Marlins Stadium, I don't think they could have picked a worse place to put the stadium. And then the design of that stadium is atrocious. Like the retail around there is non-existent. Like none of it survives.
So,
my like and.
But did you go to the Orange Bowl growing up?
I'd never been there.
Okay. As a guy, I went to the Orange Bowl growing up, and look, there's challenges with the site, for sure. And to me, the failure, there's a lot of failure as it relates to that experience, because of that. The implications of the post-political after the deal was approved, you had elected officials here saying, we will never go to a game there. I will never invest a penny in there. I will not do anything. I'm so angry at it. In Washington, D.C., a guy named Adrian Fenty was running for mayor, and he was behind in the polls, and a woman named Linda Kropp was leading. Linda was in favor of the Nationals deal. Adrian Fenty was a council member, was against it. His campaign was very effective, and he won the mayor after our deal was done and signed. Fenty's comment, they asked him, what are you going to do with the National deal? He's like, what am I going to do? It's an investment already. The bonds are being issued. The building's being built. I'm going to do everything possible, make that thing the best building possible, the best opportunity possible, because you know what? We're here. I'm not getting sued. I want to get, we're doing it. And here the reaction was, it's a plague. Let's not touch it.
Yeah.
Let's stay away from it. And it's not that I don't understand it. Like if you can't see through to the other side, if you can't think about their logic, I get it. But I don't agree with that logic, right? I get it, and I appreciate why people thought that way. But I think if people would have thought about, can we create an entertainment district? And now they're talking about that now, and I don't know if it could be effective. And then they built those parking garages with retail at the bottom.
It's atrocious.
Which, by the way, that's different design than the stadium. Those garages, it's like different architect, different design team.
Yeah,
how that was integrated is, I wouldn't have done it that way either.
No, I mean, it's completely turns its back to the neighborhood. It doesn't integrate. It's kind of it's its own thing over there. I just don't know if there's any fixing it.
It's very Miami though.
Well, I mean,
listen, I think about the building itself. And I think the building's pretty good.
the stadium's pretty, sure.
But it could be better.
Yeah.
I can tell you the things I would do if I was an architect.
But I don't know what fixes it, to be honest. It's just, I feel like this is not really that much of a baseball town. And then it's just put, in the middle of, Little Havana there with no connectivity to transit. And, it's just, there's nothing around there. It's kind of, it's kind of dead in the water over there.
Yeah. I look, again, I'm a half glass full kind of guy. I think there's opportunity there.
Yeah,
I do. Now, look, it may never happen, right? They have a 30-year lease. Like at some point, it's not like there's another 14 years there.
yeah.
What was there before?
The Orange Bowl.
Oh, that was the Orange
Yeah.
Bowl.
I mean, listen,
Got it.
I was in that Orange Bowl when the Dolphins beat, the Jets in the playoffs. I remember seeing the Chargers and the Dolphins in the playoffs. Like, I was a little kid. I remember, I would think I was 12 years old, University of Miami playing Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, 11 or 12. And I'm like, Dad, I really want to go. And no one bought hurricane tickets at the time. Like, we scalped tickets on the street right? To go into this game on a school night. I'll never forget that. I mean, we won. We were national champions, the first one. People crying in the stands. I've never seen so much energy and passion. That building was a piece of crap, but it has memories, and that is like sacred ground. And by the way, the Dolphins suck so bad now, and they were so good when they played in that building. You can't help but wonder. But it was a special place. You know, you're gonna get blocked for your parking spot or not, or how this is gonna work.
Right.
Quien se peso no block. You know, like, you know, the whole thing. You're arguing with people about it, but it was, people were used to going there. And again, I think it was a missed opportunity. I don't know that it was the wrong place. I think there's been a missed opportunity, and I don't know that you may be right. It may not be correctable, but I do think it was a missed opportunity, because when you're putting $500-600 million into a neighborhood, and you make no effort to do the connectivity you're describing, to, like, literally, you're not that far away from a historic, like, you know, sort of a historic, like Gaiocho, right? Like, is there a way to connect the two? And it's probably maybe too far.
I
maybe
think
not.
it's too far.
You know, you have what's going on with Jackson and the courthouse system, and, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But with some creativity, maybe you're able to look. We're seeing development all down the river, right?
Yeah.
And people have bought on the river, straight down the river, and are developing things.
What happens to that stadium in 15 years when the lease runs out? Do we just tear it down and stick it somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality is, you know, where are you going to find your next spot? Yeah. I mean, like a stadium needs, you know.
How many acres of land is that? Do you know?
I don't remember. Like, if I was building a stadium with no parking, 0 parking, probably need, especially now because we're building them smaller. We're building around in baseball around 30,000 is for smaller markets, and then 30 to 34,000, 32,000, 28 to 32,000. I think, you know, 10, 12 acres.
Okay.
It used to be, you say 15, 16.
Yeah.
You know, an arena you can probably do in smaller, 9.
Yeah.
9, 10.
So at this time in your career, are you still at Foley and Lardner doing this Miami deal?
I'm definitely not a Foley and Lardner. No. I left Foley and Lardner a long time ago, over 10 years ago. And, you know, I joined, so I went to a firm called O'Melveny and Myers, and a great place.
Also in DC?
That was in New York, because I relocated to New York. And I was, you know, enjoyed my time there. During COVID, I always had planned on coming back to Miami, including when I interviewed with O'Melveny. I said, look, I need to be very clear. I'm moving to Miami at some point. And the thought was they were going to open a Miami office, which wasn't happening. At least still not happening for them, I guess. And I actually, I shouldn't say I don't know. I'm not there. But so I was working during COVID. I basically relocated. You know, I had three kids, little kids. Now I have 4, but I had 3 little kids, and my parents were here in Miami. And you sort of like really think, like, I keep on saying I'm gonna move here. Well, when am I gonna move here? Right? And for us, like, as we were seeing our friends in New York move to Long Island or New Jersey, I'm like, listen, if I'm moving to a suburb, I'm moving to Miami, the other suburb of New York.
Yeah.
Right? I need to be near my family. Or I'll move to LA, where my wife's family's from.
We're actually the 6th and best borough of New York.
Listen, and this borough is about to grow.
Yeah.
Because if that election goes the way people think, I think the borough is going to grow a bunch. And so, you know, like I said, we owned a house down here. It had been rented out. We decided to rip the Band-Aid, and we relocated here during COVID. And I was working here I was more and more siloed from the firm. And I do teach a class at the University of Miami on the buying and selling of a minor league baseball team. I think it's a fun class for the students. I hope so.
Cool.
And you know, the chairwoman of Sidley is actually Sidley Austin, my firm, which I really, really love. Sidley, she's from Miami. She's Cuban American. She's a University of Miami graduate. She lives in Dallas, but she's a true Miamian. And we were connected, and we sat down, and she said, look, you know, I have an entertainment practice. I don't have a sports practice. Be really interesting if you'd want to build a sports practice here at Sidley. Now, look, Sidley's 2,300 lawyers, 4 offices around the world, tremendous infrastructure from a talent pool perspective, and connectivity to communities and all the things you would desire in any firm. And when I was in law school, to me, it was like this I always viewed it as this phenomenal firm that was like very conservative. And as I'm looking at this woman, Cuban-American woman from Miami, is the chair of Sidley. Okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how cool is this? Like, it really says a lot about and she was a lateral partner that came in, I think, 10, 12 years before, and really said a lot to me about the firm and what the ethos of the firm was and the culture of the firm was. And then I start learning and researching about the structure and the collaborativeness of it and everything else. But before I can even do that much more research, she said, and here's the thing, I really believe in Miami. I'm going to open a Miami office. Whether you come or not, I'm opening in Miami, and it's not going to be a satellite office. This is going to be a full service, real office. And, for me, she had me, like at that point, she knew she had me, because I'm like, well, when you're working, even if I loved my colleagues at my old firm, like going to work and seeing your colleagues, to me is meaningful.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy seeing people on a daily basis and being part of a culture. And how can I train someone if I can't see them? And and how do you build a business if you're in this environment feeling you're by yourself? So she's like, I'm opening this Miami office and I'm committed to it. And you have the chairwoman of a firm. And by the way, it's happening whether you're coming or not. So it's not like this pie in the sky story, because I've had people tell me that stuff too before. And I, one thing led to another. And so we opened the Sidley office, Miami. I was one of the first few partners that were hired. We officially opened it in August around 3 years ago, a little bit over 3 years ago. We now have over, around 60 lawyers. I'm, hiring partner. I had our summer recruiting program. It's just been great.
Can we talk shit about Larry Silverman on here too?
Why are we talking about Larry? Larry's awesome. What's your problem with Larry? He's the best.
Larry's a good guy. I've known him for a while. He's we're avid cyclists. We're one of those. Well, he's a roadie, so
he's a Peloton guy.
Mountain bikers think less of roadies.
That's really...
So he's a roadie.
This episode is brought to you by Built World Advisors. Yeah, that's us. We're not your typical commercial brokerage. We combine deep market knowledge with a media platform that actually connects to people doing deals: the developers, brokers, architects, and attorneys.
Let's not forget the investors, Ben. From warehouses in East Hialeah to off-market gems in Allapattah, we help you find value where others aren't looking. If you're tired of waiting for opportunities to land in your inbox, let's talk.
Built World Advisors, real estate for the people who get shit done. You can check us out at builtworldadvisors.com. Going back to the Miami deal, at that time when you did the Miami, the Marlins deal, is that when you were still at the other firm?
The Marlins deal, I was at Foley. Yeah.
Foley, okay. Yeah. And so is that when you kind of got traction as being known as the sports and entertainment guy, like doing these big stadium deals?
It doesn't hurt when you do a couple in a row, sure. And then, and then I started to reinvent myself. So, the economy crashes. So I had the opening of Nationals Park and the commencement of construction of Marlins Park happening at the same time.
Oh yeah, and then 2008, huh?
Yeah, and so you're seeing it like there were no stadium projects coming up the line. It was like frozen, right? The bubble, it hit hard. And I was like, look, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to be in this business of sports, and if this is really my path, I need to diversify my practice. And guess what? In this economy, someone is selling. It's got to happen. So I start, Rolodex, whatever, contacts. I'm just rolling through like what's going on, who's in trouble. I'm trying to figure out. And next thing you know, I'm talking to the guys looking at trying to buy the Texas Rangers. And which was Nolan Ryan, this guy Chuck Greenberg, and a few others. And we end up representing them in that transaction. And that was my first M&A deal. And the truth is, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I know I'm not I wasn't trained to be an M&A lawyer, so I'm not going to pretend and do that work. My job's to try to manage the deal, prioritize the deal, figure out where I can provide real value in a transaction. Because at some point you're a manager, right? Like, yes, my technical skills are relevant, but my ability to manage and prioritize and focus. And that world that I came from in politics, again, like really able to compartmentalize under a microscope was essential. And it was a very high profile issue because, the owner team was in a lot of financial problems. The team actually ultimately, with the cooperation of Major League Baseball, was allowed to go into bankruptcy, and the team was sold in bankruptcy. And my clients bought the team. And that was the beginning of, wait a second, so now I have stadium, now I've done M&A. Okay, what's next? And the rest is history. I want to diversify outside of baseball. I want to do basketball. I want to do football. I want to do.
And what does it buying a team like that look like? Where are the sources of revenue? What are they buying? Like, I know they're buying the IP and everything. I assume it's like merch, the ticket sales. Is it
there's this thing called
streaming rights? Like, what it's got to be so many revenue streams. Like, what does a deal like that break down to?
Well, look, we look at the contractually obligated income. Sponsorship is a really big deal. Media rights are big drivers. Tickets are big drivers. Definitely IP, food and beverage. But the sponsorship, the big drivers is sponsorship and media, and then tickets.
And are these teams valued on like a multiple of EBITDA, or how do they come up with a valuation? Because some of them just seem so crazy. It's just like, I just want it. Like,
well, that happens too, sometimes. But one thing that's interesting that's happened with the advent of private equity investment in sports is we have some real analytics going now. Like, there's some real deep dive as to how these things are. One of the limitations on the valuations in the past was each league has what's called a debt service rule. So, it's cash versus, there's a limitation how much debt you could have. I mean, there was Major League Baseball, it's either 8 times or 12 times, right? Like, for EBITDA, I believe. And that, like, if you're an old stadium, it's 8. If it's a new stadium, it's 12. It's like, okay, well, is that enough? It's going to limit how much you can buy a club for, right? So, so there are all these.
And how does the club affiliate with the stadium? They're not separate; they're together.
Well, we structure so you have the enterprise, and the stadium doesn't have to be owned by the team.
Right.
You create in the U.S. U.S. is different than Europe. Well, I shouldn't say completely. There are similarities but differences. But in the U.S., we'll have the enterprise, and then you have a team co and a stat co. Sometimes we have a real co, and sometimes we have a media co. And what do we put in? The team co is just the franchise, pretty much. Stat co is where all the contractually obligated income comes in, sponsorship, ticket sales, and that's what you find. That's where you finance against in that stat co entity, which is you try to make it bankruptcy remote and this SPV because they can't really grab the franchise. You can't really foreclose on a franchise. Leagues won't let you do that. Media co, RSN business is dying. So that could just be the media contract is in there. You could assign the media contract into, in theory, a stat co, I guess. Everyone does it a little differently. And real co, where you put real co is really interesting because real co is not the stadium. Like in stat co could be your lease for the stadium, your management agreement, or where you own the stadium. Real co is ancillary development, and that could be a sister company rather than a subsidiary of enterprise co, right? And you would do that for a lot of reasons, including thinking through long-term revenue sharing and other things. Look, we have to think about the business in compartmental pieces, right? So the revenue is driven by the stadium and the contractually obligated income. That's what you can finance against, and that's like the core of the business. And and all those revenues that come in are subject to certain governance of the league. Real estate ancillary development, depending on where it is, depending on how lands, even complete, depending on future collective bargaining, all this stuff. But right now, there are ways to keep certain ancillary development outside of the box of revenues that ultimately gets shared with players. So there's
a lot of pieces.
There's a lot of pieces.
And how levered are these acquisitions typically?
They don't let you lever them that much usually. No, there's debt service.
That's why only rich guys buy them. Huh?
Well, so what's happened, it's interesting, is what private equity now buys. Private equity is looking at these things and saying, well, where's
those guys love LBOs. Those guys want to.
Well, they're seeing it, and look, what's in the U.S. is different than Europe in many respects. Like in Europe, a private equity fund in theory could own a team. Here, you can't. You're going to be an LP here, and you have very limited governance right here. Like there's restrictions, and it's a different business plan, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But what they do really effectively is they clean up your cap table. So if you have 20 LPs at 1% or whatever, they can come in and buy 10 of those and like, wow, it's one entity and it's clean, and it's like perfect, and negotiate a variety of terms. But that cleanup, and that's provided that ability for a current owner to offload some equity from a liquidity event without giving up control, actually is really created some changed the fundamental way I look at valuations. yes, you can look at the metrics of multiples of revenue, but you can also, look at the liquidity of the secondary market and other things, and how, the secondary market's much more liquid than it's ever been, and that is very helpful.
That's really interesting. You also worked on the Miami soccer stadium, didn't you?
I did.
And that's cruising now. Every time I drive to the airport, I'm like, holy shit, this thing's ripping.
Yeah. I mean, the city of Miami, Inter Miami, have been trying to negotiate something for, I think, well over 10 years. At one point, they were looking at doing something in Overtown and coming downtown, and they finally settled on the golf course by the airport. How long have you been involved in that process?
Well, thankfully, I'm not involved anymore.
Okay.
That was one of the more difficult projects I've been on. I represented the city of Miami on that one, and it was odd for me from an experience perspective, because the issue wasn't about the money. The money issues were resolved. It was about, what should be allowed, and things that are, parks and a variety of public purpose issues that come into play, and technical guarantee issues and things of that nature. But the reality is you have a family ownership that is very well respected and has done tremendous work in the community and has done a lot of things to fulfill their promises to fans and otherwise. And then you have contracts, and today's owner is not the question. It's who could be the owner tomorrow or 10 years from now. And so I have the difficult moment in those moments is to think about as like, I know you're great, and I know you're wonderful, and I know you're the best owners for this club, and I know you're committed to things, but I have to think about what happens if you're not the owner someday. And that stinks. It's a terrible position to be in, because I want to be in the team side. It's a lot of fun because you're like, let's get a deal. There's a certain vibe to it. But when you're on the public side, there's public policy issues and other things. It's not always money. And so
you had to be the guy putting up the roadblocks instead of the one swatting them down.
I had to be the one talking about what are the risks to the city, not for any reason, because just like, look, city, you make those decisions. I'm not a principal. In many of my deals, I get to sit around the table and think about the business issues, right? Like here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options you have. In this deal, I really was there about, these are the risk allocation. This is the risk allocation. Do you want to do it or not? And it was hard because you want to be like, I love the team, and my kids love the team and everything. You want to be super supportive, but I also have a job to do. And my job is to say these are the risks. And for those, someone tell me what you want to do based on these risks. And that's not fun. So it wasn't a fun project, but I'm so excited. I go to Grapeland Park almost every other week because my kid has a baseball game there, and I see how much progress they're making, and it's so exciting. It's going to be tremendous. And the fact there's going to be a city office building there too. I think I hope that I can get into since I fly out of that airport every other week, I hope that I can get in and out on a game day, and I'm sure I will. I'm sure they're going to figure it all out. But yeah, that was to date, that was my toughest project. Not, oddly enough, not because of the economics. It was just hard. Everything was it just didn't feel, it wasn't as fun as it could have been. And that was unfortunate because I felt bad about that. I mean, that's the reality is I'm that guy that tries to solve, I'm usually the guy that's sitting here solving problems, not putting up barriers. But since the role was very narrow, it was and I had co-counsel at the time, was let's just put in writing, these are the issues. Tell us what you want us to do on each of these points, and we'll do it. We'll draft it any way you want. And then when you put those questions out, well, what's the point of that question? Well, let me explain. And then sometimes the other side didn't appreciate the question. I'm like, it's not about you guys. I'm just, it really, because I think those guys are great. God, if they've done a tremendous job.
Who's that? The Moss and Becks?
Moss. I mean, yeah. I'm sure he does a lot too, but the reality is the Moss family has been an ambassador for the city for a long time, and look what they're, you see them trying to grow the brand. I'm sure, and Beck is as well, Beckham is doing as well, but I just think it's think they've done a good job.
Are you allowed to opine on the location of the stadium?
You know, as a guy who flies out of that airport on a regular basis, I'm not sure I'm loving it, but it's not my call.
Yeah.
That's a client call. And look, it's hard to find a site.
It is. It's tough to find a site. I just, I think
Finding any acreage in Miami is basically impossible.
Yeah.
You know.
I know they wanted to go in Overtown at one point.
And that was before the Moss family, though.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That was when it was the other ownership, and I actually looked at that site because I represented a sovereign entity that wanted to buy the team prior to the Moss family.
Okay.
And so I toured the site. I walked the site. That was in Overtown. It was a very interesting site, tight site. I mean, it's been super cool because you talk about the March of the Match. If you follow soccer and or football, whatever you like to call it, across MLS, and you see like these things like the March of the Match, and you can see how people can walk from downtown to that site, like
to which one?
To the Overtown site.
Right
by the.
Yeah,
that would have been.
Yeah, that would have been sick.
That would have been sick. It was a really tight site.
It was.
Yeah,
and imagine when that bridge goes up.
Ooh.
It's already a disaster.
I was almost late today because there was a bridge. The bridge on 2nd Avenue was up, and there was like a tugboat going through, and it was this. And I saw it, like I was like, "Oh shoot!"
Slow motion. Yeah.
I was like, "Let me." And I actually like went on the highway, and got off on like exit 2B to like go around everything. Because if not, I would have never gotten here.
Look, you've done so many cool giant deals. I mean, Gabe Plotkin buying the Hornets from Michael Jordan, $6 billion deal buying the Commanders. Any deal stand out as the funnest or most memorable or most exciting deals that you've worked on? Like,
I wanted to answer that too, but I noticed you have done a lot of work with Syracuse University.
Yeah.
That's where I went. So how'd you
get out?
Yeah. How'd you get connected with Syracuse?
I'll talk about small world. Chancellor Severud was the dean of the law school at WashU. Not while I was there, after I graduated, and I met him because at the school when I was, very young, honored me as like young alumnus or something, alumni of I don't know, some award. And I flew out to St. Louis to give a speech, and that's when I met him for the first time. Fast forward, he gets chosen to be chancellor of the university, and he started calling me up, asking me advice about the Carrier Dome. And what did I think? And I was like, well, and we talked about a lot of different things. By the way, that's a stadium project. The public doesn't know how much different that project could have been. I mean, they did a major renovation, but the truth is, like, there was one version of it that was like, there was one concept that was a new building off campus. And Severud's chancellor was like, I don't like the idea of being off campus. To his credit. Like, he's like, I'd rather have it on campus, which was, I thought, a great decision. Then, like, how do we make the dome? And there was going to be concepts like an alumni center and a parking garage, all on a new hotel and all. It was a wild project. It was a lot of fun. And that was a lot of fun for a while.
I haven't been to Syracuse since I graduated in '96, so I'm glad they kept the stadium on campus.
It's no longer the Carrier Dome.
No, it's not.
I did that deal too. Take the name off.
Oh,
to negotiate that deal. Help.
And it's because of Carrier air conditioners, which actually started in Syracuse, New York, an air conditioning company. Are they still even in Syracuse?
I think they have a presence.
They have a presence, right?
But they're predominantly in North Carolina now. I believe.
Is that right?
But it's interesting because from a legal perspective, it was before like we had this real naming rights system, right? So it was a donation.
Yeah.
So naming rights have certain terms. Donations have different terms and different ways. And so
it was really one of the first universities that had a corporation's name on it. I never thought about that.
And so if you went and looked at that contract, the amount of money they paid at the time, which was substantial to fill the gap to complete the building, it ended up being a steal for them because, so anyway, it all worked out. And I spent a lot of time in Syracuse. There's a Sheraton.
I'm sorry to
in
hear
Syracuse.
that. That's terrible.
I never had to be there in the winter, really. I never got snowed in. So, but
going back to Ben's question,
it's a great question. It's a hard one to answer because I will tell you, there's probably like 3 deals that really always jump out. And one is the Washington Nationals deal because that was my first deal.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable. And it's the beginning of the change in my life, right? Like going from this political universe that
really
I was
pivotal moment, yeah.
Real pivotal. Yes, can't speak anymore. It's the little tequila I've drank is already impacting me, and so that was one thing. The next thing I would say was actually Marlin Stadium.
Okay.
But not for the reasons you think. It's just because I'm a home guy. I'm a hometown guy. It was, even though I didn't live here. And again, like I've talked a lot about my family and everything else, like that stadium, like the idea, like the Marlins could have left. Like it was really a potential on the table thing. And being a part, and my dad likes baseball or loves baseball and stuff, like that was unreal. Like I'm in my hometown,
yeah,
and I'm able to keep baseball here. Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, really
right.
Cool.
Like I was at the press conference. Like when they broke ground, I was on stage with a shovel, and my dad's in the crowd. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's just that's pretty good. And then the next one I always think about is the Dodgers, because I represented Guggenheim when they bought the Dodgers, and that was wild. I mean, it was a very long transaction. It was a very difficult transaction. Took forever.
When was that?
2012.
Okay. That was kind of when the huge resurgence in the Dodgers culture, I feel like.
It was right before, because in 2011, it's when it started to happen. Divorce between the McCourts, started to bubble up. Stan Kasten, who was president of the Nationals, was trying to figure out his next gig. Guggenheim, Mark Walters, and Todd Bowley were very interested in investing in Major League Baseball. They almost looked at another MLB asset. Fortunately, that asset sold before they got rolling, and then it became very clear that the Dodgers were going to go on the market. The Dodgers was a strange deal, because under Major League Baseball rules, you cannot file for, and basically in all leagues, you're prohibited from filing for bankruptcy unless you have the permission of the league. Now you get into constitutional questions on whether or not you can actually file for bankruptcy, and how can you really prevent someone, and I'll let a court get into that. But the Dodgers filed for bankruptcy without the permission of Major League Baseball. So that led to a huge fight, huge series of fights and issues of what authority they had, and they were debating these things in bankruptcy court. And eventually the team went on the market for sale, and 25 people put it on the market, and the expectation was the team was going to sell for $1.2 billion. And lo and behold, it sold for a lot more than that, right? $2 billion plus. And we went through this long process, and there was a lot of strategy. And I remember, like, how do you make this Guggenheim, which is Mark living in Chicago and Todd in New York, how do you make Guggenheim look LA? And Stan Kasten was a great strategist, and love Stan, and we started talking about it, and he had a relationship with Magic Johnson. And so long story short, we had to go see Magic Johnson. Now, usually I'm the lawyer. I'm not the guy that usually gets to sit in the room and not on every deal do I get to sit in the room and have these discussions. What's the strategy? But for that meeting, Irvin wanted the lawyer that's going to be helping with the legal strategy in the room. And it was the funniest thing. We had a room with little placards across the table, and Stan was right next to Irvin, had me next to Stan, and then the money people. And I'm like, no, this is wrong, right? Like I'm the lawyer. I'm just like, I'm not the guy to be right here. I'm sure you mean. And Irvin's like, no. I want the lawyer to talk. And so we had this very funny conversation. Hey, I'm Irvin. Well, I'm Irwin. Haha. Like we're joking around about our name for a little bit. And I used to idolize the guy, But I used to work for the president and vice president of the United States. I don't look at him as his role. Now we're in a room talking business. So now it's like I go into my mode, and I'm like, this is why I think we're going to win. This is the strategy. This is what I think will happen. Because he's like, look, the money guys are going to say they're going to buy a team, and we're going to do a great job. And I believe that. I want to hear from them second. But I want to hear from you. Why do you think? Because I got 10 guys coming into my office asking me that I should join their group. Why should I join this group? Why? And I gave my spiel. Stan gave his spiel. He was like, thanks, I like that. And then like 24 hours later, he's like, I'm in on your group.
Wow.
And, holy cow. We were still at LA. We were in dinner with another group, actually. And then we get invited to go see Peter Guber. And Peter is he's like a Hollywood icon. Like he's a Hollywood producer, and he's owned lots of teams. He still owns part of the Dodgers, Golden State Warriors, other things. Wonderful guy. And now we're at Peter's house like the next day. And I get asked to do the same thing. Why are we going to win? I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I love it. I like, this is like the greatest thing in the world that I get to start talking about this. And I'm giving my spiel, and Peter comes in. And it's not because of me, let's be honest. I mean, Mark and Todd and Stan are the real leaders there, and they're the ones that are doing it. But I got to play my role of being a part of that. And that was just amazing. But it was hell on earth. It was a deal hell on earth. It was very difficult. I had to fight with Major League Baseball, which was also a client, about pieces of it, and it was awkward and difficult. And I was working 23-hour days at one point for an extended period of time. I remember when we were getting ready for closing, I had a team of people who were working at this law firm's office, not ours, at someone else's firm, and we're sitting there working. And basically, I'm like, at 6 a.m., I'm like, go home, take a shower, come back. Do not take a sleep. Do not go to sleep. We don't have time for that. That's how it was. It was that intense. But in the middle of all that crazy crap, this young lady walks in the room who, because I asked the local office to give me all their corporate associates that I need. And she shows up, and Stan sees her and goes, have you met Annette? I said, yeah, why? He's like, you need to ask her out. I was like, trying to get me sued? Like, I can't do this. Like, come on, man. Like, you're a lawyer too. Like, this is not going to work. He's like, yeah, you're such a wimp. And he gave me crap about it. So anyway, he gets to leave at midnight, right? Where all the lawyers are working. I can show you, if I pull out my phone right now, I can show you pictures of literally of like being in this conference room and working, and people, like the papers across conference rooms. Like, it's pretty cool. I mean, it was awesome. And in retrospect, at the time, it was pretty hard.
Grueling, yeah.
It was grueling. But the next day, Stan comes in at like 11 o'clock with a box of donuts. We'd already been there like 4 or 5 hours. Eyes are bloodshot, third cup of coffee. You're just grinding through all these things that have to get done to get this deal closed. Because if you don't close it, I'm convinced I'm going to be found in the bottom of the Hudson or some other river somewhere. It just wasn't like, that's the pressure I felt. And he's like, have you asked Annette out yet? And I'm like, seriously, Stan, I don't have time for this crap. He's like, I'm going to go talk to her. So he comes back, I don't know, 5 hours later, in front of my colleague, like one of my partners, Kevin. He goes, all right, Irwin, she lives with her parents. She's Mexican-American. She's Orthodox Jewish. She went to law school she went to undergrad at Penn. She went to law school in Cardozo. She has a boyfriend in New York. Don't worry, it won't last. That's the scouting report. I'm like, Stan, I'm billing you for all that time you wasted. You're really like, I don't have time for this shit. Like, we really got to get this done. Like, thank you very much. Goodbye. Fast forward, the deal closes. My team sees me cry because I'm like emotionally just spent and burnt and like fried, to thanking them for everything they had done. Annette, my now wife, was this person that sees me, and she actually grabbed the champagne cork from that day. She saves it from the floor, not knowing. 5 months later, she breaks up with her boyfriend. 6 months after that, she's no longer working for me. Someone that we worked with told her that if she didn't ask me out, I would never ask her out because I'm too rule-ish and I focus on rules. She got buzzed. She told me she had a crush on me. So long story short, I owe the Dodgers for not only a tremendous transaction that was record-breaking at the time, it was unbelievably formative, had an unbelievable impact on my career from lots of different angles. But I owe the Dodgers for actually having a wife and a family and kids.
What a story.
So I cannot ever say that deal is not one of the best deals in history.
Wow.
That's true.
That's incredible.
And Stan, by the way, was at my wedding. We're Jewish, right? So he was under the chuppah. He did one of the blessings because he gets credit for introducing me to my wife.
That's amazing. He had the conviction. That's incredible.
Stan's Stan. Stan is something.
What are you working on? Any interesting deals here in Miami right now? I mean, Miami seems like there's just more and more sports coming here. I know the county's got an RFP now out for a huge sporting complex out west somewhere. We have F1 here. We have tennis tournaments. Anything else on Miami's radar in terms of new sporting events or teams coming here? And how about surf parks? Are you looking at surf parks at all?
You know, it's funny you say about surf parks. So
I feel like that's the next thing that's trending right
Really?
now. Yeah, surf parks.
So from a Miami-Dade County perspective, isn't no one thing in particular. There is chatter about a variety of things, including, you know, women's soccer expansion
cool.
and maybe bringing back WNBA. And, you know, look, this market will always be looked at historically what it is to what it's becoming. It's, you know, in the 5 years since I've relocated back to Miami, my hometown has changed. You know, when you have, you know, 300, 400, 500, I mean, what is it? It was 500,000, then a couple people, 100,000 went back, and now more people are coming back in. It's like a cycle, right? When you have that many people coming into a city, it has an impact. And so I think any league or any asset would be crazy not to think about Miami because it's a special place. And there's a, you know, I'm biased. I live here, and there are deals that people are talking about. Whether they happen or not, don't know, and I couldn't disclose if I was working on them right now. But you know, it's my practice is very much global. So yes, Miami-Dade County. I physically live here, but I'm on a plane every other week. So I have projects in the Midwest. I have projects in the Northeast. I have projects in the UK. You know, like across wherever I can get work, wherever they're willing to pay me to go, I go. But Miami-Dade, I think there's lots of opportunity here. We don't have a lot of space.
Yeah,
That's an issue. Yeah.
You know, Broward I think is, you know, paying attention, you know, to a lot of things too. So we'll see. But, you know, look, the state of Florida is active, right? You know, Jacksonville Jaguars are doing their big renovation. The Rays are really intent on getting a new stadium done very quickly now that ownership has changed. You know, so there's activity in the state as a whole.
any surf parks?
From a surf parks, I don't hear about any surf parks in Florida. You know, you hear about surf parks in California.
Yeah.
And of course in the
Which
Middle
is
East.
funny. There's way more waves there than here.
Well, you know what it is they create like a lake. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a very
Yeah.
controlled environment.
Yeah.
And
The perfect wave every time.
the perfect wave every time. And it's a really interesting business. You know, I think in the Middle East, you're seeing, I think they've already opened a surf park in the Middle East. I can't remember where, if it's UAE or wherever. There's definitely, it's an interesting product. And I think people are going to continue to explore. It's not, you got to figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah.
Everything's about monetization. So listen, you go to Disney and they have Disney has a product. You can, as I understand it, you can like go early in the morning, take surf lessons before the water park's open, right? You can pay a premium and you can do that. I know someone who's done it before, but that's not this, right?
Yeah.
This is different. And you got to figure out a way to monetize year round. It can't be just for one tournament. Like you got to, you know, so how do you make that a destination? And so that you're you know, I think about all these things as, you guys, you know, understand and appreciate real estate a lot. Like when I was a kid, you know, you think about, and growing up in retail, you thought about the big box Bloomingdale's or Macy's. Those were anchor tenants that drew people in, right? Now we want destinations to activate things.
Yep.
And keep people there. And by the way, it's public policy. We don't want you to leave so fast so you don't put so much pressure on the roadway. Come early, leave late. Don't be punctual, right? And leave right on time. Like, we don't need the surge stuff. We need we need a flow, and we need you to constantly flow in. So, you know, surf park, the challenge, and I'm sure they can do it because in certain dynamics, is how do you get people to come all the time
Yeah.
to monetize it? And I've seen people try to tie it to golf courses and other pieces. So
You need some like Rick Caruso style development surrounding it, you know, like the Grove and the Americana, that kind of thing.
isn't he doing a big development around the Hawks in Atlanta?
He is?
I believe so.
Oh, it's going to be badass then because he's a monster.
He knows what he's doing.
He does.
He knows what he's doing.
He does. Well, Irwin, thanks for having a glass of tequila with us and telling us your story. It's been really, really interesting.
On a
It's
Wednesday
really-
too. This is unusual for us. We're
It
usually,
is.
usually a Thursday or Friday podcast,
Yeah.
but we did it on a Wednesday.
Well, I appreciate you squeezing me in, and I appreciate the opportunity. It was fun. I'm like ready to pass out right now. I'm so tired, but I have a term sheet to get out tonight and a couple of things to run and watch some baseball. So hopefully I get to watch both my 7-year-old and 9-year-old play tonight. But No, look, I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome.
If I can ever be of any help or anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Cool. Well, we
Awesome.
learned a lot today.
We did.
This
Very
is
cool.
A topic we've never spoken about. So thanks for educating us.
You got it anytime.
All right. Thanks, Irwin.
Cheers.
Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.